Hello, mixtresses and mixters. This is mixtressrae. You're watching Mixtress video. So I'm going to do the VR today, the 5 indispensables VR to Toadstool Tarot. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a top 5, but not really a top 5 because, if I were to go forward in my life using only 5 divination decks, it's not necessarily going, there are going to be favorites. Are they going to be absolute favorites? They need to be like really all purpose, right? So I'm going to do these let's start with Oracle, because I actually have 3 Oracle decks, and I'm like, if you were to ask me like what my favorite tarot or Oracle was, it would be tarot. Like if I were to pick one divination deck, it would be a tarot deck. But Oracle decks are so different from each other that I feel like having 3 Oracle decks makes sense. So anyway, my first one indispensable would be Vintage Wisdom Oracle. This is definitely, I wouldn't call this like a favorite Oracle deck because but I consider it to be very basic. This Oracle deck works for anyone. It has, all the basic concepts that an Oracle deck should have. This one comes out a lot for client readings, especially. But also, just as I work with it more and more over the years, it's become special to me as well. This particular deck was the first deck I had ever tried to trim, and I didn't do a bad job, but I just didn't do like a good enough job to riffle shuffle because it was just kind of uneven because I didn't know like how to do it properly. So this is the first deck I ever trimmed. I've retrimmed it since then, and it is now much easier to shuffle. And anyway, I always have this one out. It's always like at reach for any client readings, and then I do use it for myself sometimes as well. Like this year I picked one for each month of the year. So this is my card for October, which is funny because like since I injured my thumb on October 4th at the very beginning of my vacation, it really did turn into like all the things that I wanted to do for my vacation. Like some of them got changed to reflection because I had to spend time relaxing and being still and healing, and I'm learning to embrace silence. And so it really did turn into a month of reflection for sure. So that is the first in my 5 indispensables, again in no particular order, except I'm doing Oracle first, so I guess it is in an order. If I were to only use 5 decks for the rest of my life, the 5 indispensable ones, I would have to have this one because I consider communicating with fairies to be important, and this is my best communicating with fairies deck. Plus this is the first Oracle deck that I ever had in my life. This is not that copy, unfortunately, but my very first Oracle deck was this one back in my like teens. I believe I would have still been a teenager when I got this deck. And back then I didn't really connect with it very well, but now I do. But this one's got, I would want to have also in my 5 indispensables, if I could only use, I'm considering this as like the 5 decks you take with you when you like are escaping a burning building or something, I would want to have one like really meaty Oracle deck, like an Oracle deck where you choose, I have several of those, where you just like choose a card and then you have like a meaty guidebook to like really dive into the meanings of the cards. And so this is the one of those types of Oracle decks that I chose because it is a connection to fairy. I mean, if we were doing my 10 indispensables, like Kali Oracle would have made that list. Probably the Seasons of the Witch Samhain Oracle would have made that list. Look at that butt. Look at that butt. I just love this deck. This deck, like, almost always reads me for filth. And it's very, like, the guidebook is very, like, it's detailed. It kind of, like, it's serious, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's very conversational. It just feels like a conversation with the fairies. It really does. And then my last oracle deck is one I made myself. I guess this is like the backs of that 90s tarot that I just collaged over with notebook paper and pen. This is actually, this one that's on top is my favorite song of all time. It's kind of tied with another song, but so basically this is just like all my favorite songs, especially ones that I associate with particular tarot cards. And I don't use this deck often enough, but I think if I were only to have 5 decks for the rest of my life, I would want to, there's so many Fiona Apple songs in this deck. Like, it's very personal, of course, because it's my favorite songs of all time. I mean, not all favorites. This is the other one. Like, White Pepper Ice Cream by Chibo Amato and Burn by The Cure are, like, tied for my favorite songs of all time. But yeah, it's just, this one, I don't use it often enough, but when I do use it, I look fucking cool. It's good, you know? Maybe someday I'll make a more professional looking version of it, but I actually kind of prefer it this way. I mean, it's hard to shuffle because, like, it was already, like, it's not US games, but, you know, that kind of cardstock that's kind of thicker. It was already that sort of thicker cardstock, and then I put paper on top of it, so it's extra thick. But it's not impossible to shuffle. But anyway, this is an important deck to me because I made it myself, and when I do use it as, like, a clarifying deck or just, like, with, you know, yeah, I use it like with alongside readings, like picking songs for people. I mean, I am the mixtress, so that makes sense for me. I actually even, this is so dumb, but for the most part, the song that I chose for the card is I actually put on top of a card in this tarot deck that I think, like, the themes match the song, even though you can kind of tell what some of the cards are because it's, like, you know, notebook paper. So you can tell that this Cascades is the 2 of Wands. So you can tell in some cases, which was, like, just so extra. I didn't need to do that much. I didn't need to do that much, but I did. Anyway, so that's my third oracle deck in my 5 indispensables. And then let's get down to the tarot decks. So I would have to have an RWS because that is, like, the system that I learned with. So I would choose this old plaid back. I don't know exactly how old it is. Think it might be from somewhere between, like, mid 80s to mid 90s. And it's that, like, papery, like, doesn't really have a finish on it. Cardstock. You can see it's kind of, like, jagged on the edges, but not in an unpleasant way. Like, it's so soft, it's so nice to touch, it's so easy to shuffle. Some of the cards are cut kind of, like, uneven, you know, the borders, but I don't care. I would definitely want this one because it's vintage and it smells like incense. Because I store it with incense if I ever store it somewhere, which I just have it out. Always got fur on this thing. And then the last surprised to no one that watches this channel. My Marigold Tarot. I just love it. And every time I get it out, I feel like I'm having a conversation. Particularly, I feel like it's a conversation with the goddess Kali. So I would want, in my 5 indispensables, I would want that sort of feeling of being able to connect with that goddess. And this one always is like that. This is like a brutal truth deck for me. Even though some of it is kind of like more abstract, pippish illustrations, and some of it doesn't really make sense. Like, how is this 8 of Wands? It's supposed to be because this, I think these are these supposed to be mangoes or oranges? I can't remember, but I think because they're supposed to grow really fast. Anyway, those are my 5 indispensables. And I think that I would have everything I need with these 5 decks, actually. Because I'd have a basic oracle deck in Vintage Wisdom. I would have the, basic tarot with RWS. I would have my sort of like more aesthetic tarot that also I work really well with in Marigold. I have a homemade deck in my Mixtress Oracle, or whatever I call that. And then I would have my sort of more deep dive Oracle deck, and also connection to fairies with Fairies Oracle. So this is a really fun little VR to do. And so I just wanted to come on and say hi to you guys and do it real quick. I don't have a lot of time on my hands in the coming weeks, so I don't know how many. Plus, I'm just sort of trying to focus on, this might sound silly, but I'm trying to focus on silence. It's kind of the key word in my mind. I'm intentionally choosing to watch less YouTube videos, to spend less time engaging with, because most of the time, like, I constantly have a soundtrack of like podcasts, YouTube videos, music, whatever. I hardly ever just sit in stillness. Like, almost always, like, I just painted my nails, and almost always while I'm painting my nails, I would like turn on like a RuPaul marathon or something while I'm doing it, because I have to intentionally choose to stop moving for a period of time for my nails to actually dry. It's hard for me, which is why my nails are almost always chipped on this channel, because I hate painting my nails, because it's like a whole process. But this time I just sat by a window and I had a book. And when I was waiting for coats to dry, when I was painting my nails, I wasn't listening to anything except the sounds of my neighborhood. And whenever I was waiting for my nails to dry, I just read my book. And I'm trying to like intentionally carve out more time and space for reading, because it's something that's really fallen by the wayside in my life because of all the things that I do for different jobs and stuff. I just really don't have time to read, because the time that I might be spending reading or meditating or, enjoying the silence, I spend watching YouTube videos a lot of the time. And not that that's a bad thing. I mean, you're watching one right now, and I'm glad you're here. But I think right now I'm just feeling really called to spend more time in silence. And I'm watching a squirrel on a roof right through a window right over there. And I think that he's looking into my soul. Or she. Or, let's be honest, they, because animals don't give a shit about gender. Hello, squirrel. I kind of want to show you this squirrel, but it will go badly if I try to do it. So just imagine that you are looking at a roof about, I don't know, what is that, 20, 25 feet from me right now, and there's a squirrel looking into your soul right on that roof. That's what I'm experiencing right now. Yeah, anyway, so all that just to say, that I may not be posting a lot of YouTube videos in the coming weeks. Who knows, maybe, I don't know, but I'm just letting you know just in case. You know, I'm not going away or anything, but I may be, I'm trying to do less because I think I need more space in my existence. And that space is being interpreted as like, I need to do nothing. I need to read and I need to stare out windows more. Those are the goals that I have right now, to read and stare out windows more. That's what I'm doing. So that sometimes might mean that I spend less time with you, but it doesn't mean that I love you any less. Okay, bye.